Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Imperfection Wellness Podcast. I'm so happy you're here and joining me today as we dive into the first of the 9 concepts of Possley's paradigm, and today we're going to be talking about awareness. Just to level set a little, whether you're brand new to the world of wellness and mindfulness, or you've been exploring these topics for a while, I am pretty confident you're going to learn something today that resonates with you. That's my hope for you. Because today we're going to explore how awareness plays a crucial role in helping us live happier, more peaceful lives. Free from that grip of negative thought patterns, of stress, free of those self-beliefs that we don't even know is a self-belief. It's just such a part of us, we don't even question it. I was talking to a friend and she didn't even question the fact that she doesn't need to have social anxiety when she walks into social situations. She didn't even question the fact that that doesn't have to be a part of her. And so when we were talking, she's like, I think you should explain that to people, that there's beliefs that they have about themselves, the people around them, the world around them, and they don't even question it. And that's what we can learn from awareness. But I don't want to jump ahead because before we get to that concept, I do want to set the stage a little by just generally talking about mental health and wellness, as well as an aspect of that which is mindfulness, giving some context for those who may be new to these ideas. And if we look at mental health, broadening that concept, it's a central part of our well-being, but it's often misunderstood and often not talked about. Most people associate mental health with mental illness, conditions like depression, anxiety, trauma-related disorders. But mental health is more than the absence of illness. It's how we cope with life's up and downs. It's how we navigate stress, how we take care of our emotional needs, our social and psychological needs. It's so much broader. And so when we talk about wellness, we're referring to this holistic approach, caring for our mental, emotional, physical, and sometimes even our spiritual health. I was brought up very religious and kind of did a 180, and then I kind of came back to it and realized I'm a very spiritual person. I do have a lot of core beliefs, but I don't want the dogma that goes along with it, all that structured, you must believe this or else. And so once I released that aspect and I came back to spirituality, it was wonderful. It's about creating this lifestyle that promotes balance and self-care in a way that aligns with who we are. But sometimes we don't know who we are because we haven't taken a look. We're just on autopilot. So when we have an awareness of our overall wellness, we start coming to the realization that we can look inside ourselves, see who we are, and we don't need to numb. We don't need to numb with sex or drugs or alcohol or other excessive behaviors, excessive shopping, excessive exercise, whatever that may be. We don't have to numb just so we can suppress or repress these uncomfortable feelings. We can deal with them in a healthy way. Why? Because we want to live more authentically in present moment, the only moment we have, instead of worrying about the future or having regrets about the past. I also want to talk a little bit that wellness is not about perfection. That's why I called my company Imperfection Wellness, wellness for the perfectly imperfect. We're going to mess up, but we're going to make small daily steps that contribute to our overall well-being. And with Imperfection Wellness, I emphasize the importance of embracing those imperfections because it lets us be real. We don't need to create this facade. I was such a chameleon for so many years and had to act like I had everything figured out and always had an answer. But on the inside, I was miserable. And my numbing agent of choice was drinking. But what I realized is my imperfection is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm on this journey. And we're on this journey together, learning and growing. Going back to wellness for a second, it also means checking in with yourself and understanding what you need at any given moment. Maybe that's rest. Maybe that's movement, activity, exercise. Maybe it's just a few minutes of stillness. Some mindful breathing, of paying attention to your breath for 15, 20 seconds. When you start thinking of wellness this way, you'll notice that your mental health automatically improves. You'll be less overwhelmed, stressed. You'll be more grounded. You'll be more equipped to handle life's challenges. And I alluded to this earlier, that a core practice within cultivating wellness and improving mental wellness is mindfulness. And I think of mindfulness very simply. It's about being fully present in the moment. And let's face it, that can be hard to do in today's fast-paced world. Our minds are constantly racing. We're thinking about that project we need to finish. We're worried about bills or our health. We're replaying that conversation from last week over and over in our mind, saying, why didn't I say this? We're so caught up in the past or future that we miss out on what's happening right now. And all that mindfulness really is, it's the practice of being in and observing the present moment without judgment, in full acceptance. And we'll get to full acceptance when we talk about that concept, because that's one of the concepts in the paradigm. So we're going to come back, but one way to be mindful, as I said, is just paying attention to your breath. Or you can notice the sensation of your feet on the ground, or even observing your thoughts as they pass through your mind without getting caught up in them. That's mindfulness. Mindfulness is not about shutting off your thoughts or emotions. It's really about seeing them for what they are, these temporary experiences. And these experiences, while you have them, they don't define you. That's what it's about. And when we're mindful, we begin to notice how much time we spend in our heads, how much time we spend associated with our thoughts, with our beliefs, with these ruminating patterns. And we're rehashing the past, we're worrying about the future. And that's why awareness is key. It's the first concept in the paradigm, because it opens the door to living more fully, here in the present moment, where there's peace and contentment. It doesn't mean you won't have a bad day. It doesn't mean things will be perfect, but it means you have a solid foundation. And that's what Possley's paradigm is about. It brings us out of association with our thoughts and beliefs and brings us back into present moment, free of the ego. And I use the word ego a lot. And when I talk of ego, I just mean that voice in our head. It says either we're better than everybody, but that's not what mine said. Mine said I'm not enough. Mine said I'm not good enough. Mine said I'm worthless. Mine said I'll never make it. Mine said, okay, you made it, but you're still, who are you fooling? We'll talk about that in a moment. But when we transcend or go beyond that egoic voice, we become our true self in this present moment. We're no longer chasing the past or future, missing out on present moment. And Possley's paradigm is a framework I developed, but I didn't develop the 9 concepts. The 9 concepts are age old. But these 9 concepts serve as a roadmap. They serve as a visual. I want people to print it out and carry it with them. When you're having that moment, look down at one of the 9 concepts and say, where am I? Am I aware that I'm so stuck in thought and so stuck in the past right now? Can I just bring my awareness to that, print out the paradigm, and use it as a tool? That's what it's for. It'll help break you free from these ruminating thought patterns, these neural pathway patterns that your behavior is almost second nature. You don't even think about it. Think of the last time you commuted home, whether you take public transit, ride a bike, walk, drive. Do you pay attention to each and every step? Do you actively think about it, or is it kind of routine? Now think of the first time you ever commuted to work at that job. You probably had to learn a new way and find a way to kind of, how am I going to get to work? But now it's so second nature, we don't even think about it. So we want to turn off that autopilot. And that's what the paradigm helps us do. Go off autopilot. My autopilot wasn't very nice. My autopilot said some mean things to me. And as I alluded to earlier, I drank to numb out that voice so I could just stop for a second. And that's what we're doing this for. So go to imperfectionwellness.com. Again, imperfectionwellness.com, and click on Possley's Paradigm. Download your free copy. Have it next to you. Refer to it throughout this podcast. This podcast series is a precursor to the book I wrote on Possley's Paradigm. on breaking free from the shackles of ourselves that we don't even know it. And those thoughts, those thought patterns, and that voice that says, I'm better than you or I'm less than you, that's what we want to transcend. These 9 concepts, while they all build on each other, guiding you towards this more authentic, fulfilling life, free from judging, rating, comparing. While it is a framework, I want to underscore that you can follow them in any order. And if you're looking right now at the paradigm, this will make sense. If you're not looking at it, I'm going to refer to 2 concepts. But sometimes I'll pick up the paradigm and I'll be the observer. I'll observe my thoughts. Other days I jump right to affirmations and gratitude. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, I'm holding on to some anger. I might need to move towards forgiveness. But when you have that roadmap in your hand, it's so helpful. And this brings us to concept 1, which is awareness. And to me, it's the first concept because it's the foundation of the paradigm. It's the foundation of my wellness. Because without awareness, I remain stuck in that autopilot mode, reacting to life rather than consciously responding to it. And with awareness, we're able to step back from our thoughts, observe them, and recognize I am separate from my thoughts and what they say about me and the world around me. I'll say that again. I am separate from my thoughts and what they say about me and the world around me. And when we start feeling and believing that, that is where the transformation begins. By the time we get to the 9th concept, which is action, and again, you don't have to follow these in any order. They're on my website. Go take a look at them. Start looking at the 9 concepts now. Once you get to action, you'll have the tools to actively make changes in your life. But again, we start with awareness because many people are not aware that they aren't aware. And one way to think of awareness is it's just the ability to step back away from your thoughts, becoming separate from them. And with awareness, I'm aware that I have thousands of thoughts each day and that this is normal. And I'm also aware that I'm more than what these thoughts say about me and the world around me. I'm aware that I'm separate from these thoughts, and most of them are not based in truth. They are based in fragments, half-truths, and stories from the past and the future. And I'm aware that when I'm identified as one with these thoughts, I'm out of present moment living, and it's unlikely that I feel happy or fulfilled, as our egoic thoughts always want more. And so that's why we come back to being aware, trying to find a center, living as true self in present moment. I think of awareness as one of the most liberating concepts you can grasp because it allows you the understanding that you are able to separate yourself from your thoughts. Just having that awareness was so powerful for me. For years, for decades, I thought I was what my thoughts said about me. They're coming from me. So if they're coming from me, how could they not be me? And so this might sound strange, but think about it. How often do you have a negative thought that pops into your mind out of nowhere? And a lot of times it's a worry about the future or a regret about the past. And sometimes these thoughts come up like, who the hell do they think they are? I'll show them. Maybe someone accidentally cut you off. Doubt it was intentional. Or another thought, I'm not good enough and I'll never achieve my goals. Or I don't deserve to be happy. Or everything bad always happens to me. The ego is on your side telling you those stories are true. But that's exactly what they are, stories. And when we tell ourselves these stories, we're time traveling. And we're always time traveling to the future or to the past. We don't time travel to the present because if we're in the present, we're free of that egoic voice or we're observing it, which again is one of the concepts that we'll talk about in future episodes. So with these thoughts, for most humans, 99.99% of us, thoughts are a daily occurrence. Having anywhere from 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, And that 90% of those thoughts ruminate or are the same and just swirl in our brain. That's what the studies show. And we believe them without questioning them. And that's what I said earlier. Why wouldn't we believe them? They're coming from inside us. But here's the thing. We are separate from them by becoming the observer, by using the other steps in the paradigm. And so the stories you tell yourself about who you are, what you can achieve, what others think about you, they're not facts. Someone looks at you crooked from across the room. Maybe they had an itch, but instantly you go into story and be like, they're mad at me. You just told yourself a story, and then you're going to time travel to something you did in the past of why they might be mad at you, and then you're going to shrink. Just bring awareness to that moment and say, wow, I'm in story right now. And there's a very good chance I'm totally wrong. And that's why I call them stories and half-truths. There might be a little bit of truth in there, but they're unreliable stories. They're based in ego, and they're keeping us out of the present moment. And when you become aware of this, you start to observe your thoughts rather than identify with them. Again, I want to underscore this because it's so important. When you become aware, you start to observe your thoughts rather than identify with them. And you see them for what they are. Half-truths, stories, temporary, fleeting. They're based in fear, insecurity. They're based in past experiences or potential future scenarios that will never likely occur and that no longer serve you. I'll share an example from my life that affected me for decades. For the longest time, I struggled with feelings of worthlessness. My thoughts would constantly tell me that I wasn't good enough, that I wouldn't succeed, that I didn't deserve happiness, that I was worthless. And because these thoughts came from me, I didn't question them. I didn't know to question them. I believed them, and it was horrific. And when I wanted the thoughts to go away, the easiest thing for me to do was to drink, to kind of numb, distract, get out of my head. And then I'd wake up the next day with regrets of like, God, what did I do and what did I say? But for that moment, I felt good. And I walked around like a chameleon because no one could tell. And when friends asked, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you say something? It's like, what am I going to say? Because the thoughts don't stop. I'd go to therapist after therapist and counselors and just talk to people. And I'm like, what's going on? And I didn't know that. I didn't know that we have, again, 60 to 80,000 thoughts, and 90% of them repeat on themselves day in and day out. Then I came to awareness, and I realized something so profound. Those thoughts are not true. I mean, I want to scream it from the rooftop. They were stories in my mind. They were stories that were being told to me by the ego. The ego thinks it's protecting me by keeping me small. If I keep him small, I'll protect him. And that's what the ego's for. It gives us our sense of identity. It is there for protection. It's with all humans, and it's with us till our last breath. But when we're attached to it, it can destroy us. And once I recognized all of this, I felt an incredible sense of liberation. I no longer had to be shackled by the lies my mind was telling me. And I want to tell you, I still have those same thoughts. And most of those thoughts I have daily. But now I turn away. Now I use other concepts within the paradigm. I utilize the paradigm every single day without realizing it because now these concepts are so a part of me. And that's where we start with awareness because it's so powerful. It lets us step back from the stories our mind tells us, see them for what they are, stories. And these stories are driven by our ego. And we've heard the term ego before, like, oh, he's an egomaniac or she's an egomaniac. We're not talking about arrogance or pride. I love a simple definition that I heard from Eckhart Tolle in his book, A New Earth, which I highly recommend everybody read. But in the context of this paradigm of mindfulness, of spiritual growth, I think of the ego as that voice in your head that's constantly judging, rating, and comparing. And Eckhart says that the ego is the part of you that's fully identified with form, and form to him is physical body, your thoughts, your emotions, sometimes even your possessions. So it's when you're fully identified and unaware that you're identified with these forms, whatever those forms may be. And that's another pausing moment to say, wow, that's profound. And that's the core of what we're talking about. I also want to give the caveat that the ego is not bad. We don't try to destroy it, because trying to destroy it would only create another endless loop. We simply become aware that it's there. It's trying to protect us. It's looking to reinforce its sense of self by building itself up, so making us feel like we're larger than life, or, tearing others down. And if we can't do that, then we'll tear ourselves down. I think of narcissism as the extreme of someone totally attached to their ego, and the ego saying you're better than everybody. But at the core of that is still fear. Huge fear. And regardless, not getting stuck in the weeds with that, a lot of times the ego tells you your worth is tied to what you achieve, how you look, what others think of you, what job title you have, what car you have, all these fleeting externals, as I call them. This constant judging, rating, comparing keeps you in this state of dissatisfaction. And so when we think of our ego as that unobserved voice in our head, this voice that'll narrate your life if you let it, feeding you stories about who you are, or who the ego thinks you are, and what the world is like, it's going to replay old events, keeping you stuck in regret, projecting into the future, filling you with anxiety about what might happen. And what we come to realize, as I've said, through awareness, is that we're more than our ego. We're more than our egoic thoughts. We're more than how we look. We're more than our beliefs. We're more than our emotions. Yes, we have these things. Yes, we can enjoy them, but they don't define us. Our possessions don't define us. Our beauty doesn't define us. We can enjoy our beauty knowing it'll transition. And when it transitions, we're okay with that, because it doesn't define who we are. We can enjoy that new car because that new car doesn't define us. And so when that new car isn't new, we're still okay because we're not defined by it, but we enjoy driving it. We'll talk more about this in next week's episode of talking about attachment. If we're attached to and associated with our ego, it will try to convince us that we are nothing without these things. That's what we're trying to be aware of. And it also says if we're not striving, achieving, comparing, then we're failing. If you're not sprinting a marathon, then you're nothing. And a lot of times that's what the ego said to me. You did great, but you're only as good as your last project, so keep running. I don't care how tired you are. And it was exhausting. This is why awareness is so important, because when you become aware, you start to see through the ego stories. You recognize that these thoughts are not based in truth. They're just a reflection of your fears, insecurities, and societal conditioning. And when you practice awareness, when you become aware of awareness, you start to connect with something much deeper than ego. You connect with your true self. And your true self is the part of you that is whole, peaceful, and content with everything exactly as it is. Yes, you heard me. Your true self is content, is whole, is peaceful with everything exactly as it is. And many of us don't feel that because we're not connected to our true self. That's what the paradigm is for. The true self exists beyond your physical body, beyond your thoughts and emotions, beyond the items you own, beyond your job title, beyond your salary or the house you live in. The truth self is authentic self. It has an inner contentment and an inner fulfillment that's just period, end of sentence there. And when you're connected as true self, you're authentic. You're connected to life and the world around you, and that's beautiful. The thing is, most of us live our lives not being aware of our true selves because we're so caught up in the world around us. And the world around us, the news, social media, friends, family, our careers don't talk about this. And then the stories from the ego come right back in. And we forget that there is a wholeness within. We are enough from within just as we are. But when we're associated with or attached to that ego, we always need more. Oh, the ego is hungry. It always wants more success, more money, more validation, more power, more things, more stuff. And once I get more stuff, I'll be happy. Well, listen, I chased that forever and I continued collecting stuff. And I lived a beautifully extravagant life, and on the inside I felt nothing. Because the ego still wasn't satisfied. It still said that I'm crap. It still compared me to others, and I always fell short. It either judged me or judged others. Always looking for that next thing to latch onto. That's why we want to come back to our true self. To experience a sense of calm and peace and contentment that doesn't depend on external circumstances. Now when I have a bad day, I know it's fleeting. But when I have a good day, I know it's fleeting too, because I know good and bad will come. And I sit in acceptance of what is. Again, we'll get to that concept of acceptance in a couple episodes. But awareness helps us come back to our true self. Seeing we're beyond our thoughts and emotions. We're beyond the stories. We're something much greater. I wrote somewhere a while back that when we identify with our thoughts and beliefs, we are disconnected from the wholeness of life. We miss out on the beauty of the present moment because we're stuck in the stories of our mind. And that's so true. By practicing the concepts in the paradigm, starting with awareness, we're able to reconnect with the wholeness of life that's around us. We don't need something else to be complete. We don't need something else to be whole. We feel this sense of inner peace, contentment, and fulfillment because we're not chasing the ego's endless demands. And as I said earlier, awareness is that foundational step. And in the final concept that we'll talk about, action, we'll actually explore practical steps you can take to break free from the stories your mind tells you. Now that's the 9th concept, and you might say, wait, I don't want to wait 8 more weeks. So again, go download the paradigm. But there's another simple action you can take. And yes, I'm very biased, but I think meditation is a wonderful way to find and come back to your center. And if you're interested in learning more, I offer both free and paid meditation courses. I would encourage you to visit imperfectionwellness.com and click on Vedic meditation. I'm a Vedic meditation teacher. I graduated in 2024 and very excited to share my knowledge and my passion with other people. You can click on free intro talk and actually schedule time to meet with me. And if currently it's Tuesdays, but if Tuesdays don't work with you, then just shoot me an email, info@imperfectionwellness.com. Again, info@imperfectionwellness.com, and I'll find time to meet with you and kind of give you an overview of what meditation has done for me and what it can do for you. I also believe that mental health and wellness is a human right, and as a human right, we need to have free resources. So I created a free resource page on my website. Take a look at it and go to the free resources page and get your free wellness guide. It kind of is a little way to jumpstart your wellness journey and helping you feel that inner true self, breaking free from your thoughts. One last thing, that a tip that someone gave to me that I like to share with people is another action step. If there's one thing you do today and you want to cultivate more awareness, start becoming more aware of your thoughts by simply asking yourself, who's thinking this? When those thoughts come in and they're descending upon you, where is that coming from? Who is thinking this and who is saying this? That skips you ahead to the fourth concept, be the observer, because now you're saying, wow, this is separate from me. It's a part of me, but I'm separate from it. And I hope that asking that simple question of who is thinking this can help you. That concludes our discussion on awareness, but I think a lot more could be said about it. So please comment or send me an email, but be sure to subscribe and continue following the podcast. This is the first concept of many to come and early on in this podcast, but I'm very excited to be finally sharing and launching this. I've had this on the back burner for way too long, and so it's nice to be finally launching. And in our next episode, we're going to explore the second concept in Possley's paradigm, which is attachment, and I'll give you a little preview. But if you ever noticed how easy it is to tie your self-worth into the things you own, the beliefs you hold, the way you look, I call that egoic attachment. It's when we become so identified with external forms, like I said earlier, our possessions, our achievements, the roles we play, what we have, what we look like, that we start believing they define who we are. And that's simply not true. When we live in egoic attachment, we think that if we don't have the latest gadgets, the best job, the title, if we don't look a certain way or dress a certain way, that we become somehow, or we are less than. And our sense of worth becomes conditional. It's tied to things that are outside of our control. But just like with our thoughts, we are not our things. We are not our beliefs. We are not our appearance. These are just aspects of our life. They don't define who we are at our core. And so in the next episode, we'll dig a little deeper into how this form of attachment keeps us stuck in a cycle of comparison, dissatisfaction, and insecurity. And again, you can see why awareness is so key, because now that we're aware of that, we'll start questioning it. And more importantly, we'll talk about how to begin letting go of these attachments. You can still enjoy them. You can still have them. It's just that they don't define you. And when you realize that, you again start coming back to your true self. You start finding out that your worth is inherent and unconditional. Unconditional. Understanding attachment is such a critical step towards finding peace and fulfillment. Because when we're attached to external things, we're always at the mercy of change. But when we start to release those attachments, we free ourselves to live more authentically and with greater joy. So please join me next time as we discuss some steps to break free from egoic attachment. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope this episode has sparked something in you. If you've not heard of this concept before, I'm assuming it will. And you might be angry, frustrated, dismissive, unsure. Regardless, reach out and let me know. Again, leave some comments. Would love to hear some feedback. And over the next 9 weeks, we'll finish discussing these core concepts of Possley's paradigm. Be sure to click follow so you can be notified of new episodes, though my plan is to release a new episode every Sunday. And as always, thank you for listening and wishing you the best on your wellness journey.